Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the program on family businesses going from person-led to process-driven. My name is Yavar Beg and I'm happy to spend this time with you. My information is on our website www.yavarbeg.com and you're welcome to take a look at that, and also on this slide which is on the screen before you. Let me talk to you by talking about the world today. Why about the world today? Because tomorrow will be more, for better or worse. There are three elements that characterize, I believe, the world of today. One is volatility, the second one is ambiguity, and the third one is complexity. To be able to deal successfully with the challenges of this world, we need to be able to have control and be able to deal successfully with these three factors: volatility, ambiguity, and complexity. Now, in my view, there are some abilities that we need to develop within ourselves in order to be able to deal with these three challenges. To be able to deal with volatility, I believe that we need to have as much awareness, information and understanding of that information, awareness about the world around us. Then we need to be agile and adaptable to change. To deal with ambiguity, we need to be able to plan scenarios and understand key challenges and key options, and be able to deal with probability analysis and come to good potential decisions. And the third one, the abilities to deal with complexity, is number one is perspective, to understand the meaning of what is going on, and then to have a strategy and roadmap with timelines. My invitation to you is to rate yourself and say, how do you rate on this index of volatility, ambiguity, and complexity? Let me talk to you about some great success stories of this world. Kodak. How many of us still remember those little yellow photographic rolls that we used to buy, 36 exposures, and then we took it to a shop and we got it processed. Guess who invented digital photography? Kodak. In 1975, a man called Steven Sasson at Eastman Kodak invented and built the first megapixel digital camera. And that's 1975. By early 2012, Kodak had effectively ceased to exist in the photographic world. The shares of Kodak in 2012 were selling at 40 cents as against $40 in 2005. Just 7 years before that. HMV, his master's voice. I don't mean our Prime Minister, we refer to him as that, but I mean the record company, his master's voice, founded in July 20, 1921. Anyone who remembers gramophones knows HMV. We know the logo of the dog listening to the big brass gramophone. In January 16, 2013, HMV, his master's voice, went into receivership. Lesson: neither technology nor being a pioneer is guarantee against demise. Let me ask you, what were you doing on the 20th of July 1969? Why is that day important? Because that's the day when Neil Armstrong and another man whose name probably you don't remember, called Buzz Aldrin, they landed on the moon. And they did something which is typical, which is that they first landed in the wrong place on the moon because their GPS gave them wrong directions. Secondly, they left behind their garbage, including urine bags. Sorry to be polite, but that's what they did. Thirdly, Richard Nixon, who was the President of the United States of America at that time, spoke to them from the White House, stated the obvious and took credit for it. because he made a phone call and he said, I am speaking to you from the Oval Office of the White House. Where else is the Oval Office? And then he said that this is the most unusual telephone call that has ever been made. And the last one is Neil Armstrong made a politically incorrect statement, because he said, one small step for man, a giant leap for mankind. I'm sure he included the ladies in that, but politically incorrect statement. I want to tell you on a side note, I was teaching a course in the IIT, Indian Institute of Technology in Chennai, and I met Vijay Amritraj, the Indian Wimbledon player, who is now a sports commentator and a very highly respected one. Now, he told me a wonderful story. He said that he was lecturing in a place in the United States in the 80s, and he was the first speaker, and there was another man sitting by his side on the stage. So he said, because I was the first speaker, the master of ceremonies was introducing me, and he was very long-winded in his introduction. So he said, I got a bit embarrassed, and I said to the man next to me, he said, sir, looks like you know all about me and I know nothing about you. So he said, the man said to me, where were you on the 20th of July 1969? So Vijay Amritraj says, I told him I know exactly where I was. I was sitting in front of my television watching Neil Armstrong step on the moon. He said, the man told me, I am Neil Armstrong. He said, it destroyed my speech. My mind went blank because I was meeting Neil Armstrong himself. This picture is a picture of the internet in 1969. I'm sure if we looked at the map of the internet today, it would be very different from this. And I'll tell you why I'm showing you all of that. The world today has as many mobiles as people. 33% of the world is online, which is a 5 times increase since 2000. There are supposed to be 1 billion active users of Facebook. YouTube adds 100 hours of video per minute. Twitter has 175 billion messages per day. Interesting fact, we are now in 2014. In the year 2000, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter didn't exist. A study done by McKinsey says that the United Kingdom took 100 years to double economic output during its industrial revolution. The United States took 50 years. India took 16 years, and China took 12 years, with 100 times the population base and no colonies. Question is, where do you stand and why? This is a map of the countries that the UK did not invade, and those countries are colored in white. And you can see that almost the entire world has had the benefit of being invaded by Great Britain. A study by WIDE, which is the World Institute for Development Economics Research at the United Nations University, reports that in the year 2000, the richest 1% of adults owned 40% of global assets. The richest 10% of adults accounted for 85% of the world total, and the bottom half of the world adult population owned 1% of global wealth. As they say, the rich do own the world. But what is that world? That world today is a world where 1 billion, which is 1/6 of the world, 1 billion go to bed hungry. Where 2.8 billion are short of drinking water, clean drinking water. Where 2.3 billion are without sanitation. And you might be surprised at the countries in which this is true. Believe me, I'm not talking about the middle of African rainforest. I'm not talking about the middle of the Amazonian rainforest. I'm not talking about India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. I'm talking about people, many of those billions live in some of the wealthiest countries in the world. A question, what are the implications of this for real economic growth? real economic empowerment and for global security. Corporate social responsibility. CSR is a big term, we like to use that. Question is it progress when 75% of the population of the world is short of food and water? Why is it necessary to have legislation and incentives to do what we know we must do? What more evidence do we need to see the criticality of ethical, compassionate, and principled leadership? This underlines the importance of zakat and sadaqah in the Islamic economic system. Let me talk to you about changing scenarios, new threats and new opportunities. In 1832, the telegraph was invented by Pavel Schilling. In 1876, roughly 40 years later, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. In 1927, John Baird did the first TV broadcast. In 1961, Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce invented the silicon chip. And then they invented the smartphone, which combines all of these together, plus audio recording, plus video recording, plus photography, plus into a small device which is handheld. The average smartphone today has more computing power than the computers which sent the Apollo series into space and which put Neil Armstrong on the moon. What are these the pictures of? HTC, Nokia, BlackBerry. Is a phone about ringtones or color screens or apps? You want to take a photograph? You use your phone. You want to listen to music? You use your phone. You want medical diagnostics? You use your phone. I don't know how many of you remember the tune Staying Alive. Gives a whole new meaning to the song Staying Alive when you use the phone for medical diagnostics. What is the key leverage that the smartphones brought in? Apps. Big question. Are apps or were apps a response to customer demand, or were they anticipation of demand, or were they the creation of demand? And that's why I say to you, instead of responding to customers, let customers respond to you. Let me talk to you about changes that come in which may completely upset your way of doing business, may completely take away your reason for existence. eToro, founded in 2007 in Tel Aviv by the brothers Yoni Asya and Ronan Asya. In short, what does eToro do? eToro is a company that allows its users to follow financial trading activity of other users and to copy them. Now, if you want to trade on the web, if you want to dabble in shares, what do you need? Good financial advice. It doesn't come for free. You need to pay money for it, and at that you have the advice of one person perhaps. eToro gives you effectively the advice of as many people as you want, and you have the ability to copy them. What does it do for you if you are in that business of financial investments? Another company called Alibaba.com. What is Alibaba.com? Alibaba.com is a company, is a website, e-commerce, where you can literally buy anything you want. And to facilitate matters, you can apply for a credit limit of up to 2 million. They give you an e-credit line of up to $2 million US. What does that do to anyone who's selling anything? And then there is Google. You know, we used to have BC and AD. I say we now have BG and AG, before Google and after Google. 31 billion searches per month in 2009. Android platforms for communication, YouTube, you name it, right? Why is Google so important? This is a picture of the Google data center, which is so big that employees get Google branded bicycles to get around. Google is important because with its network, technology and cache assets, Google is potentially the biggest threat to anyone doing anything, any product, any service. Then you have WhatsApp. Brian Acton, the guy who invented it, designed it, created it, whatever you want to call it. He was rejected by Twitter when he applied for a job in May 2009, and also he was rejected by Facebook in August. And so he and his friend Jan Koum started WhatsApp. WhatsApp was bought by Facebook for $19 million. Did Facebook pay for an app, or did Zuckerberg pay for a company that dominates the mobile social platform? Why must he do that? Why did he decide to pay 19 billion for that? That is one way of dealing with your competition. Acquire them. Question to you. If you owned WhatsApp, would you sell it for 19 billion? We have Skype, we have BBM, बहुत बड़ी मुसीबत. You have WhatsApp, you have Google Hangouts, you have Magic Jack. You are a telecom company. You make money out of people paying for phone calls. What happens to your business model? Question to you, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, did you think about who might be out there lying in wait for you? So ask yourself this question. What are the 5 things that can kill us in the next 5 years? What do you need to do in order to survive starting now? And how often do you ask this question? Let me ask you another question. How much do you spend annually on scenario planning? Ask yourself another question. If you agree that we are living in the information age, and that learning is critical to survival and growth, then ask yourself 2 questions. What is our annual spend on R&D, on research and development? And what percentage of turnover is that? And depending on whatever the answer is, you need to ask yourself the final question, which is, what's the implication of that on your survival and growth? Are you spending enough on R&D in order to ensure your survival and growth? You know, one thing in common with the companies that I talked about, they all thought that they would be there forever. So I want to rate yourself on a scale of 1, least, to 10, the highest, on agility and adaptability to change, on scenario planning with respect to your vision, and on perspective, strategy and roadmap with timelines. And give yourself data for your rating. If you feel that you are rating yourself too low or too high or wherever, look into your own history, look into what you're actually doing, and give yourself data to support those ratings. So what must you do? In short, reinvent yourself. What do I mean by that? We need to reinvent three things. We need to look at three things. When I say reinvent, I don't necessarily mean that you have to change. You have to decide whether you need to change or not, but definitely look at three things. Number one, your USP, your unique sales proposition. Number two, your customer relations. And number three, your structure of the organization. So reinvent your USP. Make a scenario plan, make several scenario plans, and find out what can kill you in the next 5 years and take action. Ask yourself what can disrupt your present business model, and then ask yourself, will what you sell still be needed in 2020? Now 2020 is not a magic number, I'm just giving you that number as meaning in the future. So ask yourself, whatever it is that you are selling, any service, any product, will it still be needed in 2020? And if the answer is no, or the answer is I don't know, then what's your plan to do about that? What is your USP, and why do you think it is a USP, a unique sales proposition? To give you an example, say you have a car dealership. What's the environment? Overcrowded cities, public transport, which is by and large becoming better. Believe it or not, that's happening. Number three, internet, which allows people to work from home. Number four, high toll rates, which is a deterrent for people to commute driving their own cars every day. And five is local self-contained work living spaces. Now, what does that mean for your car dealership? And therefore, what's your plan? You know, you would all have seen this kind of a sign. Everything must go, all inventory, 50% off, 90% off, and so on and so on. Now, if you don't want to be the one on whose business that sign is to be seen, then ask yourself these questions. I'm giving you different examples depending on the kind of business that you are in. What happens when you have carpooling instead of people driving or taking taxis? In California, carpooling, formal carpooling, where people carpool based on the internet. There's a social networking site based on which they carpool. In the last 2 years, it has resulted in a 30% drop for the taxi business. 30% is a lot of money. What happens to businesses when you have digital diagnosis and treatment? E-cards, flowers, chocolates, gifts, internet publishing and bookstores. What happens if you are a publishing house and you took great delight in rejecting authors, and now the author can publish himself? Well, it costs him nothing to publish, literally zero. Costs absolutely nothing to publish. People pay for the book when they buy it. Maybe he makes money, maybe he doesn't make money, but you don't make money. What about peer-to-peer loans? If you are a financial institution which lends money to people, here people are borrowing from each other. What about social investment networks like eToro and so on? What about e-commerce in all its forms? Take another great business called Netflix, where you can download any movie of your choice anywhere in the world. Netflix started incidentally as a company which sold and rented first video cassettes, and then DVDs and so on and so forth. And then they reinvented themselves, and they put themselves on the net and offered this stuff to people at a fraction of what they would have paid to actually rent one DVD, and giving them the world of choice. Instead of going to a shop to actually rent a DVD, now on the internet you can have thousands of movies and watch whatever you want. So what are they really doing? They're eating into their own market share. But you know what? It seems that to eat your own market share is good for business. What about Amazon? What is Amazon about? Is Amazon about books? Is it about movies? Is it about music? What's it about? Amazon is about everything. Whatever you want, it seems that you can get it on Amazon. And another great story about Amazon, where Prime members, they get free shipping, they get instant streaming of TV shows and movies, and they get instant access to thousands of Kindle books. Once again, it seems that it's good business to eat your own business. We talk about the internet. What about the outer net? There's something called the outer net. Information for the world from outer space. Use of satellites which are already there and which more and more get put up there all the time, available for all of humanity for free. Should you be concerned? And why should you be concerned? What will the outer net deliver? Just a nutshell, because it will deliver a lot more than this. News and information, lots of applications and content, lots of educational courseware, emergency communications, and all of that comes for free. So what happens to you if you are in business which provides any of these things, and that's your USP and that's your revenue model? It just vanished. So ask yourself, your USP, is it still a USP? Second one, reinvent customer relations. You know, in Hindi we have a term, in North India, when they say customer, they say customer. And customer means die with difficulty. Don't die easily, die in pain. Customer. Is this your view about a customer? Die with difficulty? Do we consider customers to be blessings for us, or do we consider customers to be a necessary evil? I mean, which one? And believe me, it's not a question of what you think you believe, it's a question of what the customer experiences when he comes into contact with your business. Just to give you an example of people who treat customers differently, do you know that Disney has a vice president for parking lots? Imagine, vice president for parking lots. Why? In Disney, you go and park your car and you in a huge parking lot, and then you get onto a shuttle bus which takes you to the ticket center at the gate. Now in the shuttle bus, as soon as you get in, the driver says, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you are parked in Goofy 6. They use the Disney character names and they address themselves to the children. And this announcement, you will hear it 3 times before you get down at the ticket counter. Now imagine you had the whole day, you had a lovely time, you got tired, and you come back and you say, where did I park my car? Guess what your little 8-year-old is going to say? He said, Daddy, we are in Goofy 6, because he remembers that. Now when you get to your car, you find that you accidentally left your lights on, you didn't realize that, and your battery is flat. But you will also find a big pre-printed post-it note stuck on your windscreen saying, we came by, we saw your lights were on, if your battery is flat, call this number, we'll come and give you a jump start. Now tell me, what would you feel at that time? You just finished Disney, you bought a ticket, you paid a ticket, you came out of there. As far as they are concerned, you're done. But you know what? As far as they are concerned, you're not done. You are done when you have happily gone home. So my question to you is, what is your point of sale? Is it when the customer walks into your shop and buys something? Is it when the goods are sent to the warehouse? Is it when the customer leaves your shop? Or does your point and contact of sale continue with the customer even while he is using your product or service? Customer engagement, believe me, continues as long as you think you need your customer. Think about automatic upgrades to iPhones, to Androids, and so on. Think about loyalty programs. You know one reason why people travel one airline? Because of the loyalty program. Now, question is, according to you, when does your engagement end? Why is this important? Because of one reason. And that reason is, you can only sell to friends. Some customer realities. Customers have choices to compare. Customers talk to other customers. Customers do not really believe your advertising. Customers are looking for solutions, they're looking for sensations, they're looking for experiences, they're looking for memories, they're not looking for products. Customers will buy from where it is easiest to buy, not necessarily cheapest to buy. In 2013, global e-commerce was $1 trillion. And guess what? If you are not web enabled, you didn't get a single dollar out of that. Let me ask you a question. How many times, how often do you meet customers where they use what you sell? I'm not talking about customer meetings in your business. I'm talking about you hitting the road and going and seeing what is happening to the customer who's using your product. And remember, I'm not talking about your salesman doing that. I'm talking about you, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, doing that. How often do you do that? Questions about your customers. Do you know them personally? Do you track them? Do you know how they are changing? Do you know how are they engaged with you? Do you listen to them, and do they know that you listen to them? You know, one of the biggest problems with customer feedback forms, and I'm sure you must have noticed this on airlines and in hotels and so on, people don't like to fill out those forms. And you know why? Because most people believe nobody reads them anyway. So what's the sense in my filling out a form, because nothing is going to happen. Now, I've had an experience where I filled out form after form after form in a particular situation with a particular airline that I frequently travel in India. Absolutely nothing happened. And then I had a brainwave. You know what I did? I put my complaints on my Twitter account, which has 5,000 plus people on it. And next thing I know, I get phone calls from the airline. I have people coming and meeting me and doing all kinds of things because they found those things on Twitter, and they say, oh my God, this is going to cause us problems. Now my point is, why must you go to that point? Why must you go to that point? Because we don't listen. We don't listen to our people. We don't listen to our customers. And last question, how are you using the internet? How are you using data processing to process all of this stuff which I mentioned to you with regard to customers? You know, the biggest thing about, we talk about one-stop shop, one relationship. The best thing is to have a relationship with your customer where you are the natural choice if that person is buying what you give. You know what's common with Apple, with Google, with Armani, with BMW? They remember you. They recognize you anywhere in the world. And that's why people go back over and over again to them. Another business called the Trunk Club. I'm talking about how customers will pay a premium if they are getting convenience. The Trunk Club is a business which gives you hand-selected clothing for men. It's important to dress well. What do you need to dress well? You need fashion knowledge, you need dress sense, you need, all sorts of stuff, which many men, I won't say most, but many men either have no clue about, or secondly, they don't have the time for it, but they need it. So here is a business which does all of that for you, and they put all the stuff together into a box and they ship it to you. How are they doing that? They're using data to make it simple for you to buy, because people will pay a premium if they see value. There's a great service paradox, and the service paradox is that customers who had a problem which was solved well, they rate the service higher than customers who did not have any problem at all. So people with whom service failed, but if you responded well, customers will rate you higher than those who had no service failure. Sounds strange, but this is how we are as human beings. Now, question to you is, do you know what normally goes wrong most frequently in your business, and what do you do about it? There's a guy called Jan Carlson. the head of Scandinavian Airlines. Is a fantastic success story in the 60s. I won't go into all the details of that, but he invented this term called moment of truth. And he defined his moment of truth as that moment when a customer or a potential customer comes into contact with any aspect of your business and has the opportunity to form an opinion. He defined a moment of truth as a customer or a potential customer comes into contact with any aspect of your business and has the opportunity to form an opinion. And Jan Carlson said that your survival depends on how you handle moments of truth. My question to you is, do you know what are the moments of truth in your business? Where do they occur? Who handles them? And how? And the question is, what do you do about that? Customer satisfaction is the outcome of your performance over customer expectations. Therefore, better the performance, higher the expectations. It's like riding a tiger. You can't get off. But there is a benefit in riding a tiger. Therefore, my point therefore is, God is in the details, and it's the detail which makes the difference. My friends, there's only one customer relationship, and it's called friendship. So question to you is, what are the 2 or 3 things that normally go wrong in your service? What are the 2 or 3 things that normally go wrong in your service? And what is your pre-programmed response to deal with these service failures? Pre-programmed is the key word. And how do you monitor this? The example I gave you of Disney is a classic example. Somebody in Disney did this analysis and said, how many people leave their car headlights on and have this problem of a flat battery at the end of a long day in Disney? That's a nasty situation to be in. What can we do about that? So what do? They have pre-printed post-it notes, big pre-printed post-it notes, which means that they know what the problem is, and when the problem comes up, they know what to do with it. There's no reinvention of the wheel. They are prepared. Does that apply to your business? Do you know what normally goes wrong? And what is your pre-programmed response? Third point, reinvent your structure. Why? Because structures influence behavior, and behavior drives results. Let me give you an example. How many of you have seen in a bunch, say in the UK, Westminster Abbey or something? I remember once I was visiting and I saw this whole bunch of school children coming out on this excursion, and little children, maybe 8 to 10 years old, and a big noise and so on. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm going into this cathedral now, and there's going to be all this noise. But the moment they enter the place, they're absolutely silent. The structure influences behavior. They enter this huge building, which is a place of worship, and they fall silent. Now, same thing applies to organizations. Question to ask yourself is your organizational structure enabling or inhibiting desired behavior? What kind of structure do you have, and what is that structure doing to your behavior? Best structures in the world, 3 keys: flexible, flat, responsive. Flexible, flat, responsive. And the biggest change that must happen is in the mind, because structural change is less about structure and more about you. One of my favorite, not because he was a nice guy, but because of his amazing leadership, one of my favorite leaders globally is Genghis Khan. Now, very interesting how he organized his army. Before anyone invented what we today know as the decimal system, his army was organized on this fantastic basis of 10 soldiers who elected their own leader. This group of 10 soldiers was called Arban. The Arbans, they elected their own leaders. The leaders of the Arbans, of 10, which they used to call a Zun, which is 100 soldiers, they elected a leader. Those leaders elected a leader, so 1,000 soldiers elected a leader of what was called the Minghan, and those 1,000 elected leaders, they elected the leader of the brigade size, which is called the Tuman, which is 10,000 soldiers. So each unit of 10, 100, 1,000 and 10,000 had its own elected leader. And what did that create? That created an army like no other on the face of the earth. Genghis Khan's success was based on 7 things. Ruthless meritocracy. Genghis Khan gave the supreme command. His field marshal was a man called Subadai, who started life in Genghis Khan's army as an ordinary soldier. He was not related to the Khan. He had nothing to do with his family. He had nothing to do with anybody. But the man was a brilliant soldier, and Genghis Khan promoted him, and he rose up to be the supreme commander of the army, next only to Genghis Khan himself. And Genghis Khan's sons studied and they apprenticed under Subadai, and that's how his whole system was. Ruthless meritocracy. Number 2, merciless discipline. Completely merciless discipline. Genghis Khan actually ordered the execution of his own elder son, who broke that discipline. Intense training. Hours and hours and hours of training. They were archers. His entire army was based of cavalry based archers. They say that the soldiers of Genghis Khan's army used to train so much that to look at them they looked deformed, because the right shoulder and the right arm was hugely big and out of proportion with the left because of pulling of the bow. And they did that so many times that actually muscle development happened, and they looked skewed because they had this big right shoulder and arm and a much smaller left shoulder and arm. Physical and mental toughness. There's no one who was as physically and mentally tough as those Mongols. They set records of traveling on horseback which have not been equal till today. That is 1200. This is 2014. In all those years, those records have not been broken. Excellent information. Genghis Khan knew how his opponents thought. He knew their entire culture. He knew their entire system. Amazing information. Ready to take risk. Amazing risk-taking ability and unmatched speed of response. His information riders were the fastest thing on the face of the earth until the railroad was invented. Until trains were invented, Genghis Khan's his soldiers who carried information were the fastest thing on the face of the earth. They rode horses by relays. Each soldier had a string of 7 horses. And he would change horses. On the gallop. Question is, how many of these factors apply to your business? Because all of these factors apply to businesses, not only to armies. Questions. First one: if your managers had to stand for election, would they be elected? Number 2: if you had to stand for election, would you be elected by your people? Elected. Number 3: what is the implication of having leaders who are not the choice of followers? The reality is that most corporations are dictatorships. We talk about democracy, but the most undemocratic structure in the world is the modern corporation. My question to you is, what are your exit and entry rules? Is it merit based, or is it if he is born, he will enter, when he dies, he exits? I say to you that your business and family love are 2 different mutually exclusive issues. When the 2 mix, both self-destruct. And third point is, to take care of family members, you do not have to employ them. Because business success depends on what you do, not on who you are. The key challenges for you, my friends, is to define boundaries. Define in 4 ways. Define the boundaries in 4 ways. Define entry criteria. Define career progress criteria. Define succession criteria. And define exit criteria. And most importantly, implement ruthlessly and without exception. That is the key to success, not just the definition. Company called Treehouse teaches the in-demand technology skills you need to land your dream job or to build a startup. Has over 58,000 students worldwide, and companies ranging from beginners to professionals, they use Treehouse to develop and improve their skills. No hierarchy, collective decision making, and leveraging technology. The Bombay Dabbawala is the famous Harvard case study, in existence since 1890. Make one mistake in 6 million deliveries. Six Sigma is 3.4 mistakes per million. They make one mistake in 6 million. Just two operating levels. A guy called the Muqaddam, who is the head, and the Dabbawala, who is the actual delivery person. A board oversees the business. So what must you do? Invest in yourself. Be prepared to question and change. Be prepared to be wrong. Be prepared to learn and teach. Be prepared to inspire others, because an organization is only as good as its people. So ask yourself in your structure, what needs to change, why and why not? What is the new proposal? Why is it better than your present structure? And to implement your proposal, what do you need and what are your plans to get it in terms of people, their support, and in terms of resources. Let me ask you a simple question, and with this we will come to the end of our presentation, and that is to do with succession planning. If the CEO of your company, if the chief executive of your company needed to be replaced today, who is ready to take his place? And the key word is today. If he needs to be replaced today, who is ready to take his place? Who in your company is on a specific training and mentoring plan for top management responsibility? Name the people. What is the plan? And big question, what happens to you if you don't have a name? If you cannot answer this question, and if you do not have a name to give me, if I ask you who will replace you today, does anything happen to you? What happens to you? Why am I saying that? Because in GE there is a system which we call the airplane interview, where the chairman of the company takes the incumbent CEOs and they narrow it down to 3 people. They take them up in the plane and they ask them a question. If this plane crashes and both of us die, who is ready to become CEO of GE? And that person is supposed to name an individual. And when the person names that individual, GE Corporate Audit does a complete due diligence on that individual to assess his or her capability to become chairman of General Electric. Now, big question here. If they find that that person who has been named is not yet ready to become chairman of General Electric, guess what happens? Guess who loses their job? I'm talking about actually being sacked. Guess who loses their job? That person? No, the one who recommended that person. Why are they so serious? Who are you allowing to leave your organization and seek a career elsewhere? One of top 3 people who you identified. You're not letting go a bad person, you're letting go one of your best managers. Why? Because they failed to develop a second line. My question to you is, if you are not doing that, what must happen to you? Think about this. You wouldn't dream of handing over $1 million to your child who is not trained to handle large finance. But you don't think twice about handing over your business, which is worth 10 times that much, to the same child to run it any way he likes. Does this make sense? And therefore, we come to the end of this program, where I must leave you with this question and say to you that in the end, we need to model the way. Because when all the talking is done, the only thing that people are watching for is, do you walk your own talk? The key leadership challenge, therefore, is to build credibility. Because even if it is done once, it still proves that it can be done. Thank you very much for your time and for being with us. I am very happy to answer any questions and so on that you have. You have our contact details on the slide. Feel free to send me an email. Feel free to talk to us. We'll be very happy to talk to you. Thank you very much once again. Assalamu alaikum.